welcome on.
Yeah.
Max, you're normally here. We have a guest. Introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me. My name's Zach Hocker, from Russellville, and went to school up here at Fayetteville, and knew this would be my forever home. So happy to be here 14 years later and still calling it home.
So you were a Cyclone.
We actually played Springdale. You said you're
Did
Springdale.
You? Springdale,
We played Springdale quite, I say a few times, yeah.
Yeah. Cyclone, is that like that's a weather tornado?
That's
with
what they're
rain?
going for. That's what they're going for.
It's like a junior hurricane.
I think
is
it's
that
kind
right?
of an open-ended, however you want to describe. But yes, that's what they're going for.
It just spins.
It
That's
spins.
something that spins.
It creates trouble. Yeah, but yeah, no, the Cyclones and thankful I was born and raised there, and thankful for that community. They're a bunch of great people down there.
Yeah. So what are you doing today? What's in a line of work look like and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I'm in commercial real estate.
Okay.
I've been a commercial real estate broker for the last 6-7 years now. All the while trying to expand a portfolio and syndicate as much as I can, and invest where I can in the market, so more of my practice is segueing into the investment side, but nonetheless, I love brokering, and the people that got me to this point have been awesome. So
cool.
It's great.
All right, and then you skipped a pretty important piece there in the middle, right? All right, let's take us through being a Cyclone to getting into real estate and what your life looked like. That's slightly different than what Luke's life looked like in between that time frame between all that.
No, I graduated from Russellville in 2010, and then went to Arkansas. Played football at Arkansas for 4 years, and I was the place kicker there, and played for 3 different coaches. I got recruited by Coach Petrino. Played with Coach Petrino for a couple of years. Had Coach Bielema Coach John L. Smith for a year, and then Coach Bielema for a year, and so played 4 years at Arkansas. I'm fortunate that I got to go play in the NFL for a little bit as well. So I played on 6 different teams in 4 years. So
well traveled.
Yeah. It was an awesome experience. I don't take it for granted by any means, but I'm thankful to be home too with my family and sleep in my own bed every night. You know. So it was a really fun journey. I met some of my best friends on that ride, and exposed to a lot early on. It was a lot of that contributed to what I want to do today.
Cool.
And while we're here.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I don't know how many folks that you and I have come across, Luke, that have been drafted in the NFL, but we got one across from us today.
Yeah.
So
not many.
How many other kickers were drafted that year?
One other kicker, and we were drafted back to back.
Oh, really?
Were you
first? I was first.
There we go.
Let's go. Best kicker in the
Which
nation.
I can't remember. It was like I honestly can't. It was like 214 and 215 back to back. I went to DC, and he went to Detroit. His name was Nate Freeze. And it's funny because there's such a little amount of time of overlap between the picks.
Yeah. That
he was talking to Washington, I was talking to Detroit. Like, you're talking to all these teams before they actually pick you. So there's, you can field calls many times, or your agent is trying to call you, letting you kind of give you a heads up what's going to happen, and then you can never get picked. So I had no clue what was going to happen. He didn't either, and ultimately both got picked back to back.
So did they call you ahead of time and say, "Hey, Zach, we're picking you," and then you see yourself, on the ticker line and on ESPN or something, or was it one of those things where you just saw yourself on there, and you're like, "Oh man"?
They end up calling you. There's probably a few minute delay from the time they make the call. They draft you. You accept everything, and you talk to all you see the round table of coaches. You go around, talk to everybody, the owner, and then once you hang up, there's probably a couple minute delta there before it shows up on TV.
Yeah,
and so it was a delayed reaction. I'll never forget. I was sitting on my front porch at my parents' house in Russellville, and just kind of really stressed out and anxious about everything happening. I knew, like, even if I didn't get drafted, that day I was going to find out where I was going to go play football.
Yeah.
And so I was going to have to leave at some point, right? And I didn't know where it was going to be in the country.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there trying to keep perspective and stay peaceful about everything. And it was cool because I was on the phone and they drafted me, and I just stayed on the front porch. And,
that's awesome.
And then my family's inside watching TV, and they all came outside. And, so it was a lot of fun. It was stressful, but it was a fun moment too.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for giving us a little insight there. Obviously, you are our first draftee interview, so Ed played a little football back in the day.
He did.
But as we mentioned on a previous episode, the Cowboys aren't calling, and they never did.
No.
Unlike the situation here where the Cowboys might pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Zach, you got any leg left?"
Yeah.
So
That's the crazy thing. The NFL, obviously running backs right now are a huge topic of discussion.
Yeah.
Turnover rates like 3 or 4 years. Let's just draft another guy. Kickers, I mean, Crosby, he's one of the oldest in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's gray everywhere. And so you can stay kicking. So just to speak to the competitiveness of that position, because the fitness is still there, absolutely, but you're not taking hits like a running back, you know?
That's right.
So, you hope not.
That's right.
You hope not. You hope not. So
and you're only as good as your last performance.
Yeah.
So you get judged. I mean, there's a lot of critique and judgment based on like, what can you do for me right now? And on top of that, you're the most expendable person on the team. You know, you're typically the healthiest because you don't get beat up, but you're also the cheapest. And there's a lot of guys out there that are waiting for that one shot. You know, and so you really have to walk on eggshells. You know, you can't show that you are, but you've got to be aware that the second that something may go a little bit south, or it may not go south, it may just be something where the front office wants to make a decision. And that happened to me several times where they just wanted to make a change, even before I got the chance to kick in front of them. So a lot of that's just a part of the business. But to your point, the competition, there's only 32 spots in the world for it. And there's a lot of guys out there that can do it.
Yeah.
So I always tell people were much better athletes than me that should have had the shot to play. It's just right place, right time.
Sure.
And that's a lot of, you know, the same for a lot of cases. But
yeah.
Do
you think there is a GOAT of that position?
Justin Tucker.
Thank you.
Justin Tucker.
The guy's
Adam Vinatieri, obviously like paved the way there, and like he's a household name, right? And so everybody knows who Adam Vinatieri is, but Justin is he's just a different level of confidence, and just that's it. The mental game of that position is everything. And not to say that Adam wasn't mentally tough, just Justin he's mentally tough, but also just like the talent that he delivers on. And obviously his numbers speak for themselves. So he's in my opinion the best to ever do it. I'm
a 7th grade. They put me at linebacker. Okay. My youth center football. And
where are we going here?
Being from real quick roundabout. We'll come back. Being from Arkansas, you're either like Cowboys, kind of Chiefs. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do something different. Who do I need to study? Ray Lewis. So I'm a Ravens fan.
Sure.
Love me some Justin Tucker. See, we're back. That was quick.
Yeah, you've always
reminded
me of Ray Lewis, by the way.
I look, the presence.
Yeah, physical dominance.
The build,
Yeah, can you do the dance?
It's a podcast.
Yeah. I think this is being filmed too, so I can't wait to see that.
Okay, real quick too, I know you're a place kicker. We got the GOAT debate settled. Not much of a debate there.
I know I would agree with it. Fantasy, unreal, by the way.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Okay, I have a few kickoff questions.
Wow.
Do you feel qualified to answer some of these?
Yeah, go for
You're
it.
much more qualified than Max. So, okay. How difficult is it to kick a touchback?
It's tough to do.
In 100 attempts without fatigue, could you do it 100 times?
No.
Could Justin Tucker?
No.
Well, he doesn't do. Well, he might. He might do kickoffs.
Justin would be 100 kickoffs in a row is a lot.
Without fatigue, though.
Without fatigue?
In a vacuum, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like a Justin or like a great kickoff specialist would have the opportunity to do that as long as the technique, you know, that's the thing too. 100 shots, there's maybe a little bit of delta there to like miss hit a ball or something like that. But yeah, there's a lot of guys. If you take difficult. Fatigue out, there's a lot of guys that can do that.
But it is extremely difficult.
It is.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't get one, maybe.
And I just really thought you were going to segue this into a different set of questions, but these are legitimate kickoff questions.
I'm curious because I watch kickoffs every Saturday and Sunday and Thursday, and if there's some action Wednesday, so I need to know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's there's a lot of talented guys out there, and a lot of people don't realize, like, they think kicking off is you just are running at the ball and as hard as you can and see what happens. And there's so much technique involved with like cadences and approach and ball placement. And there's just little bitty details that get overlooked sometimes. And the guys that take it serious and figure it out are the guys that can do it.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
are you a fan of the squib? One of the best plays in all of football.
There's a time and place for it, for sure. I've had a few squibs in my day, but I don't like them as much as just your traditional. But it's a fun change up.
Yeah.
Have you ever just tried to absolutely smoke the guy 10 yards in front of you?
That should be,
Have you done it? Have you done it before?
So we had a play drawn up in practice in high school. And that was the play.
That's awesome.
It was, you are going to kick the guy right in front of you instead of it being like which we never like went for this in a game.
Yeah.
But I literally worked on hitting a squib right at the guy 10 yards in front of me in hopes it would bounce off him and we would recover the ball.
That's incredible.
And so I forget the guy's name in high school that had to play that role. But he did a few times, and I smoked him.
So it was one guy
on the practice.
They didn't even switch guys.
The practice squad of the return team.
Yeah, maybe
poor guy.
Maybe they did switch it up, but it's really tough to do. But so we never went for it. But our coaches were trying to get creative there for a little bit.
Love it. Okay,
how was practice today, honey?
Look at my
Zach drilled me 5 times. 5 times. That feels like a commercial, of like the Peyton Manning when he's hitting those kids with the Nerf football.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Okay. Last question.
Yeah.
And then I'm good to call it a day if you are.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into it?
No, wait. Okay. No, yeah. Cool. It's not important to talk about our topic at all. So,
the onside kick.
Yeah.
Should that rule be changed? Because the probability is obviously a very difficult play to convert. What are your thoughts on that? Did you, in high school you were, what would that be called?
Kickoff
specialist?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't think it should be taken away out of the game. Like it's such it happens so rarely. I get where the league's coming from. With it being like a completely downhill drive, like what they're trying to do is eliminate a lot of injury and with the concussion protocols and all the info and data that's come out the last several years, and that's a serious topic to talk about.
Yeah,
but that one play, it just seems pretty finite in the grand scheme of like how to protect players or what's the safest aspect of football, so I think it should stay in the game for sure. I think kickoff in general should stay in the game. I know they've talked about that. Weed not kickoff.
Yeah.
It's just a part of the game. So, and it's not to discredit what's happening out there, like the studies of health and stuff like that, but it just wouldn't seem like it'd be football the way around if they took it out.
Hey.
Basically be 7-on-7.
Yeah, you heard it here first, right? We're making league policy decisions here. One of the reasons that we've been doing this series here with, kind of generations of money and how that's portrayed by both you currently and, how it's developed as you've grown. Sure. So you're 32, right? So that puts you kind of right in the middle of the millennial spectrum. And so, just given that perspective, I'm at the very bottom end of that. So I think like 95 is the last year. So, I'm curious to see how, your perspective and my perspective could even be a little different in that. Obviously a lot of that has to do with where we grow up and what we perceive early on, but just kind of give us an overview, if you don't mind, starting from the beginning of, hey, this is what it was like, just growing up in Russellville.
Sure. Yeah, so I grew up in a very middle class family. Lived a good life and got to have some nice things and travel a little bit, but by no means was it a lavish, exhilarant lifestyle by any means. So, but my family, my parents worked hard, and that was one value that they instilled in me is just we talked a little bit before the podcast started, just our family's generation of viewing money in a completely different light is maybe our generation.
Yeah.
And so, but a lot of the values I think that were taught through our parents are still relevant to us today, and probably a huge reason why we're all in this industry to some degree, because we value protecting that and making good decisions. So, growing up, I mean, like I said, we lived a great life, just a middle class family in Russellville, and but at the same time, like spending was definitely a we talked through that. Like going out to eat was definitely a decision, to special occasion, right? Or something maybe after church one time a month or something we make, go like the Mexican restaurant. And so it was,
there you go.
Yeah. So, and obviously over time, like I think all of that, and both my parents are retired now and enjoying themselves. And so I think over time, as we've all grown, that's loosened up a little bit, but for sure, I mean, there were some tight spots growing up and just trying to make good decisions through everything. So, but yeah, it's, it was keep your head down, work hard, treat people the right way, and stay out of debt. That was the message.
So and then obviously, you both your parents had a relationship or a perspective of money that they brought into a relationship together that kind of formed your opinions. So with that being said, as you have graduated through life, what does it look like as you're a father of two young kids? What does it look like now as you've kind of taken some of the principles that you learned as a kid, to start your own family, and what does that relationship with money look like now?
Sure, yeah, I'm definitely, with my industry now being in commercial real estate and trying to invest responsibly and develop projects and broker deals, I'm probably a little more risky than what I grew up being taught just naturally.
Sure.
But I think that all just comes down to trying to be educated about what you're about to do.
Yeah.
And I know for me with kids, especially, like time is so important, right? And so you hear the cliche sayings of make sure you spend time with your family and your kids, and make sure you carve out time. And so that has always resonated with me. And I think through the early stages of my professional career playing football, I got ripped away from family a bunch, traveling and away from things I love to do. Like it'd be hunting season and I'd be playing football, and so there were certain pockets that I made a priority when I came back and got a job that I wanted to have balance. And it's, I want to have the time, growing with my kids and my family, but I also want to make a good living. So I think there's a balance and strategy to all that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting to hear you kind of go through the thought process of having, where growing up, and I felt very similarly, debt was kind of like a scary thing.
Sure.
For sure. It wasn't talked about much, and the goal was to pay things off as quickly as possible, get them off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get them taken care of, tired of writing a check for it and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As in today, from an investment standpoint, specifically the field that you're in, that is a riskier mantra, right? It is kind of a riskier thing to do. And maybe speak to, how that thought process is developed in you. And like you mentioned education, you mentioned a couple of things that make sense from, trying to understand what you're doing. So.
Sure. Yeah. It's my dad early on. I don't want to say all debt's bad debt, but that was definitely that was being pushed, right? And I think it was coming from a place like he understood it was more than that. And
sure.
He was trying to, make sure that I protected myself moving forward. And I didn't over leverage myself in any way. And this was when I was really young.
Yeah.
And so early on, I was like, I don't even know clue what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And just over time, that message never really changed.
Yeah.
Obviously, as I got older, I started being a little more experimental and figuring out how things worked on their own. But at the same time, it was definitely, you don't want to go on that road.
Yeah.
You don't want debt. You don't want X, Y, and Z. And just over time, you learn about healthy debt and how to leverage yourself and create opportunities and be strategic. And so, now my line of work could not be more polar opposite than that early. But like I mentioned earlier, I think there are layers to messages like that from your parents, right? And so there's a lot that I've learned through those conversations, even though that may be like the base of the conversation. There were still values in there that my parents taught me that still apply today to making good decisions and being educated about what I'm doing before I just hop in with 2 feet.
Yeah.
So it all comes back full circle, but I'm definitely more today inclined to take a much bigger risk than hopefully a calculated risk. But, and that just comes with you guys too in the banking industry, right? You're looking for a deal and making sure that it's the right one for the bank and for your group. So I feel like there's a lot of overlap there.
Sure. Yeah. So in general, from a millennial perspective, then if you could kind of speak to what you see from friends and colleagues that are, kind of around your age or my age, kind of in a similar type age bracket of how you see both the good and the bad relationship with money. You see people making investments that are probably super wise, and then you see some that are like, I don't know if you should be doing this.
Right.
So if you could kind of speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. I think, I think there's a new way of thinking and an opportunity these days that we have with multiple platforms to make different streams of income, right?
Yeah.
Or to work differently that did not look anything like how our parents' job did, right? And so there's a lot of ways to get creative. I also think there are a lot of folks that still believe in a lot of the old, I don't want to say old, but kind of like the status quo way of working. You go get a good job, you climb in a company, and you make as much money as possible, and you go buy nice things. Yeah. You put a lot in savings, but you enjoy yourself along the way, and there's not really a ton of risk involved. It's just put your head down, work hard, save your money, and enjoy your money as you're growing. And so to the opposite effect of that, there's also folks that, may make decisions that are a little bit out of line with that philosophy too. So, and I think for me, I don't really, I try not to fall in line of either.
Yeah.
Like I want to be creative and like have time, right? So if I put healthy time on the front end of my job to make money, I'm hopeful that down the road in the near future, I'm able to really max that time.
Yeah.
And I'm still growing through that business that I created at that point in time or that venture that I invested in. And so I don't want to time myself down to where I don't have any flexibility, but I also don't want to be the Wild West of investing either. Yeah. And I look up and I'm buying a lot of materialistic items or I want super nice things. I'm not being smart with my money.
Sure.
So again, just another way of trying to balance that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are definitely more avenues now that I feel like millennials and the front end of Gen Z who have graduated or have jobs now.
Yeah.
Think about Robinhood. Now, you're 18 years old and you can go buy 20,000 shares of GameStop if you have that money and become a millionaire overnight.
Yeah,
that's a risky way to invest. But if you want to bet on, I think the new one, there's a new stock that everybody's been buying. I think Yellow, which just filed for bankruptcy yesterday, and the stock's going up.
That doesn't seem
I know, but it's a risky. But I love the word that you used, risk, because that's just not something that's come across yet. Yeah. And I do think that is a word, calculated risk, I should say, that I do think kind of defines, I'll say, y'all's generation, since I'm on the front end of Gen Z. But yeah, we heard from Ed a little bit about his strategy of kind of like what you were saying. 401k is the way to go. Save as much as you can. And so how have you specifically invested? I know you're in the commercial real estate business. Because Max and I are also in the commercial real estate business, but I haven't bought any commercial real estate myself. Is that kind of your avenue of how you've invested, or?
Sure. Yeah, I'm thankful that I had early on a lot of close buddies that really honestly changed my perspective in investing and just money in general. You've got all these podcasts now that really they're motivating, right? And a lot of young people are listening to them. Like the Bigger Pockets podcast and How I Built This. Like there's a lot of different categories out there that are motivating young people to invest in real estate. And so for me, it was baby steps, off the bat. Like it was a house, and then it was a duplex, and then I was leveraging money to go buy another house, and I was renovating that one. And so it was and this is all before I was actually working. Some of it was while I was working for Sage, but all of it before I really was a professional in the industry and working on commercial deals. And so through that, I see that as it was a great learning process, and hopefully it will be a lucrative process. But I learned a lot of values through those little base hit deals, right? That I did with my wife and some friends, and just learning through the process and really getting my hands dirty on something that wasn't going to put me in a bad position. But learning the values and checking the boxes of things that will allow me to segue into bigger opportunities. And so it's been really neat now I've got several mentors in the market that have really helped me. Number one that I've learned from, but just analyzing a deal and getting in the right opportunity. But it really is crazy how some of those values that you learn from, just kind of like we were talking about earlier with our parents. Yeah. Like some of the little tidbits that you learn through the smallest, at the time looks like the smallest situation, down the road, those core values of how you analyze that deal and the decisions that you're making are still applying today. So I'm thankful today. I've got a handful of projects that I'm working on. Some are ground up developments. Some are trying to buy existing projects in the market. And so it's all learning process. It can all be as complicated or as easy as you want it to be, depending on the deal. But I think it's all a part of growth, for all of us in analyzing a deal.
Yeah. So we've had, you've said you kind of hit on two things that I think resonate a lot. One is time, just the value of time, whether that be that, our parents or the generation above us worked really hard, but like you said, it was one job. And it was, maybe a 60, 70, 80 hour week in that job. Right. And so, gone, for sure from 8 to 5, but, a potential commute each way too. So you're looking at a significant amount of time outside of the home. And so I think that's something that resonates really, really highly with our generation, is the ability to be able to spend time with your family, spend time with the people you care about, and finding ways of making money and in the ability to do that. Right. So does that sound like something, that kind of would resonate with you and with, looking for other income opportunities that allow you to maybe accelerate, spending more time with your family quicker?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you nailed it there. It's early on, my group of buddies that all wanted to starting investing in real estate. It was all passive income. Yeah. Passive income. And so we all put a lot of time into learning about how do we achieve the time, Like, how do we achieve this time that we all want? And this is before wives, before kids. We didn't know what we were talking about at all. And so that's why I'm very thankful to have had a core group like that kind of had a bigger vision as, early, just young 20-year-olds trying to make something happen. And so, but yes, you're exactly right. Finding a way to create that second, third, fourth stream of income passively so that you are able to put max time in your family, but also max time in just growing in your practice too. Yeah. The less time you're bogged down looking at something that may not be the best resource of time for income, you can put more time into figuring out how to scale your business. And so, and that's a lot I've tried to do. It hasn't been a fast process by any means, but it is nice now to look at the last 10 years and be applying some of these values and these practices that I've tried to teach myself for a long time. And it hadn't been just, it's a lot of it's just surrounding yourself with the right people in the market that have been there and done that and learning from them.
Cool.
So,
all right. Well, I just have a couple other questions to wrap us up.
Yeah.
One is Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. I feel like you got to make a decision there.
No doubt, and it's no question. NSYNC. It's not even a question.
Not even up for discussion.
It's not even a question. Backstreet Boys definitely is right. They're right there.
Okay,
they're right there. But NSYNC was like when JT was like the man.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I went to a concert with a bunch of friends, and it was a Britney and NSYNC concert.
Wow.
That's
as big as it gets.
Huge.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was. But I remember going, or maybe it was like a weekend and we saw both shows and it was Britney and NSYNC. But both of them were like just like another level. I forgot I don't know how old I would be at that time. I was young.
Yeah, that had to have been like late 90s or something like that, right?
But man, it was awesome. So yeah, NSYNC first, but Backstreet Boys is definitely close.
Okay. Second. All right. And then to round us out, we may need a prediction on this year's Razorback football team.
Yeah. Man, the hopes are high for sure.
Okay.
It's like we mentioned before the show, it was Coach Pittman, I feel like, is an incredible leader for, just to the guys in general. But I think from a talent perspective, it's with the NIL and everything that's happening right now, it is the Wild West of college football. There's no rules really. Yeah. People can get paid and leave and not be penalized and then go to this team and get paid again. And they're starting to hone in a little bit, but I definitely attribute Coach Pittman and the coaching staff's values and how much they've really won over the guys to go work hard for them just based on the kind of person they are. Because I know these kids have gotten probably tempted to leave. Some of our leaders on our team. Yeah. Right. And they end up staying and they're getting compensated to some degree, but it's definitely got to be tempting to know there's not options out there to go shop and to see what we've brought back for this year is pretty exciting.
Okay. You can give
so what's the prediction?
Oh yeah. You want an actual prediction? I'd like to, schedule's kind of weird this year, but I'd like to win 8 or 9 games.
Okay. I'd like to win 8 or 9 games.
Think
we'd all be really pleased.
No doubt.
For sure. If that happened.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and say I want to win 5 games.
Okay. Honesty, you never know.
No, for sure. No, I'm optimistic about it and I don't know, we've keep climbing off momentum.
Yeah.
And so if we keep climbing, then there's only one way to go.
You give me 8 or 9 today, we take it to the bank, no pun intended, and we roll.
That's right.
I'd be okay with that. Maybe a little Outback Bowl again or Citrus Bowl.
Something in Florida.
Sure.
Something warm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Something in Florida.
Tax Slayer Gator Bowl.
It's almost like the fine line of like you don't want to like just get to bowl. Like just make a bowl because you're going to be cold.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get like 10 games maybe either because you might be cold again. So you've got to if you're gonna play in warm weather, you know, that 8 or 9.
You got to pull the throttle back.
That's
right. You got 3 games left.
All right, boys.
8 wins.
I know it's Missouri,
but do we really want? Maybe that's why we keep losing to Missouri. Is we want to play somewhere warm.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I hope they win them all, and I've got a great deal of respect for the coaching staff and Coach Pitt, and so So it'll be a fun one to watch, man.
Awesome.
I'm excited.
Well, Zach, we appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me. It was fun.